This is your Gaming Weekly News. An article was published this week about Xbox, Game Pass, Activision, Satya, Phil Spencer, and everything that shows that Phil and Satya were about to shut down the entire gaming division. The article was set behind a $200 or $900 paywall from a website you've probably never heard of that normally reports on business and financials. But it outlines Xbox's ABK and Bethesda and first-party venture, and that in 2021, Satya Nadella said that he was going to dissolve the entire gaming venture for Xbox. A source that was interviewed here is a market shareholder saying, quote, "I just think the majority of the games market doesn't really want a Game Pass like the one Microsoft is offering," said Gus Zinn. The quote about Xbox leaving the game business actually comes from Satya Nadella telling the media that he had a discussion with Phil Spencer about the direction of the Xbox platform and that he was, quote, all in gaming. PlayStation fanboys and games journalists alike that have been talking and discussing and giving reader service that has a confirmation bias that Xbox or Microsoft should exit the games industry. A day or two later, this was all debunked when Microsoft and Activision actually spoke out about the allegations and claims made by this shareholder. They said it wasn't accurate, and through omission, it was misrepresenting the business. Tweaktown, a prominent game journalist, reported the actual revenue increase that Xbox and ABK saw in this past fiscal year and said that I don't see it, that Xbox and Activision are growing really well. This graphic shows that Activision made up of 32% of the full year revenue. Xbox made $15.8 billion in post-Activision revenue in the fiscal year of 2024, which puts them just behind PlayStation at $27 billion and Nintendo in third place at around $12 billion in revenue. This graphic also shows that Activision contributed to $7.42 billion. Microsoft's official statement said going back to quarter two of fiscal year 2024, Xbox's content and service revenue increased by 61%. Breaking those numbers down, Activision accounted for over 85% of the increase in 2024. In regards to Game Pass's growth, Xbox hasn't and will never explain where their metrics are anymore about Game Pass growing, but they did say, quote, "We set a record for the new number of Game Pass subscriptions from Call of Duty Black Ops 6's launch day and set a new quarter one record for total revenue and average revenue per subscriber," end quote. Breaking, this news just in while I'm in the middle of editing my video. Jason Schreier of Bloomberg says that PlayStation just canceled 2 more games. Now they've canceled 5 games in total this generation, I think about 5, which puts them at more canceled games than even Xbox had this generation and even last generation when they canceled Scalebound. What did they cancel? Well, Bluepoint, the team that brought you the Demon's Souls remake at the beginning of the generation on PS5, canceled a God of War live service game. And if you know how great Bluepoint games can look, a God of War live service game could look and feel incredible. But how many fans are asking for a God of War live co-op or competitive game? This is another fumble in PlayStation's ability to deliver service-based games that aren't single player. The only game that they've succeeded with was Helldivers 2 at this point, and their studio didn't even make it. It gets even worse. When people start to think that Xbox is having a difficult time this generation, they're not paying attention. PlayStation is in absolute turmoil, and this generation has been the most difficult one for them, and it's not getting any better. Ben Studios, that made Days Gone one of my favorite games from last generation, was already told no, that they can't make a Days Gone sequel. And on top of that, this recently reported that Ben Studios was also told to cancel their upcoming unannounced live service game as well. And all of this is going to fold into what you're about to hear from Shuhei Yoshida, a PlayStation veteran that just left and has a lot of complaints about his time and where PlayStation is heading. Shuhei Yoshida spoke to Greg Miller from Kind of Funny Games about his exit and departure from the PlayStation brand, and a ton of revelations came from this. Shuhei Yoshida has a long storied past and history with PlayStation, bringing them up from the very beginning through their best years and into their tumultuous generation that is the PlayStation 5. Now that could be hard to hear because PlayStation is still leading in many avenues, but things are more difficult than they seem behind the scenes. Is Horizon Forbidden West, a sequel to the great, well-loved game that came out in 2017. This 2022 release, Horizon Forbidden West, according to Shuhei, did not meet sales expectations.
Second Horizon game.
Okay.
I loved Horizon game, and the game did well, and I was hoping that the sequel would do even better in terms of sales. The game was bigger and great.
Of course.
But I don't think the second one did as many units as the first one.
Herman Holtz is the head of PlayStation's first-party studios, and he's really been pushing for Horizon as a franchise to be at the forefront and the flagship for PlayStation, their new mascot, and it doesn't work. In fact, they just put out a Horizon Lego game that completely flopped. No one bought it, no one played it. It makes you wonder about the motivation behind Herman Holtz, who wants to boost up his former Guerrilla Games team with their franchise instead of doing what's best by providing a ton of hot franchises or going back to tried and true franchises that are dormant. And he's the one that replaced Shuhei Yoshida from First Party Studios. Here in this clip, Shuhei explains that he was pushed out of First Party and relegated down to the indie games department.
Maybe that's one of the reasons they removed me from the first one.
Shu's going to be a problem. Shu's going to be a problem for a live service push. He won't want to do it. Get him out. Move it over.
Fans who like to argue about the success or the domination of PlayStation were really disappointed to hear that Shuhei Yoshida also explained that Helldivers 2 sold more than Spider-Man 2.
Who would have predicted Helldivers 2 would sell more than Spider-Man 2, right?
Not me.
So that's the nature of the business. So
Spider-Man 2 was over $200 million in investment, barely made a profit, and Helldivers 2 was successful mainly because over 60% of the players played that game day one and throughout its launch window on PC. And if you're a PlayStation fan and you can't see now that that platform is moving to PlayStation as much as possible or as quickly as possible, then you're not paying attention to what Hiroki Totoki has said, what Sean Layden said when they pushed him out, and what Jim Ryan said when he said consoles are not enough when they asked him to retire early. If you don't believe me, just look at all of the signs that show that some of your favorite darling leaders at the PlayStation have all moved on. And now PlayStation is in an ever-changing industry where they themselves don't look the same as they did before, pushing games as a service and going to PC, and as they say, going wherever there is compute. The last bit of news was a long time coming and one of the industry's worst kept secrets, something I don't cover normally on this channel, but everybody wants to talk about the new Nintendo Switch 2. We saw it in screenshots, we saw leaks, we saw schematics, and the reveal is shown right here. It looks exactly like we expected. And from the outside, the Nintendo Switch 2 might just look like a new improved Switch. Like, hey, they made a bigger one for people that want one. It's fully backward compatible with the Nintendo Switch original from 2017. It also takes physical cards, just like your old Nintendo Switch, has a much bigger screen. Reports right now say that it has an LCD screen and not an OLED screen, but they've improved the Joy-Cons. It has a better separation and connection of those controllers, and they showed off a little bit of what would probably be called Mario Kart 9. Some of the screenshots show that maybe it's an open world racer. I doubt it, but it seems to be everything you've loved about Mario Kart, just with a new number and brand new graphics. They're telling you to tune in April 2nd of 2020, so just about a month until they reveal the Nintendo Switch 2, and they're not talking about the tech right now, which I think would be important to say. From what we know, this new Nintendo Switch has modern NVIDIA tech that is built into mobile or smaller laptops, so we are going to expect a massive multi-platform publisher approach where Ubisoft, EA, CD Projekt Red, Xbox Game Studios, PlayStation Studios, all kinds of third-party platforms that are normally on just PlayStation, Xbox, and PC will be making their way over to Nintendo Switch 2 because of the increased capability of the modern tech. And that's your gaming weekly news. This is Colt Eastwood. Thank you so much for checking out this video. If you're still here, thank you. I can't believe you're still here after a long rant, a bunch of financial discussion, but really, I wanted to boil that down to it's all about perception. And I've been covering the Xbox platform for 6 or 7 years. It gets so exhausting to see people look at Xbox as just a plastic console where they're in third or last place and think this is the way it is. Right now, PlayStation's in first place in their market, and they're already running rampant with price hikes, price gouging, and anti-consumer practices, and they're unchecked. If you ended up enjoying this video, let me know by liking and subscribing to the channel. Hit the bell to be notified of new weekly content. If you want to further support what we're doing here with the Colt Eastwood channel, you can do that by hitting the join button below. That will get you early access to videos. That will get you custom emojis in the live chat on the Xbox Newscast podcast. Also, you can check out the Patreon. Join the Patreon by hitting the link below in the description. The Patreon will get you some of those, as well as threadless merch, which I have on the channel. We do monthly giveaways and so much more. Check that out. Also, like I said, check out the XNC podcast that runs every Monday live for about 2 hours, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Their middle-aged game guy and I will talk about the news. We'll break down what Shuhei Yoshida said, what Phil and Satya are saying. We'll get ramped up for Xbox Developer Direct, and there's so much more. Check that out as well. Let me know what you think about this Gaming Weekly News segment and which one was your favorite. And you can say hi to Copper. Copper, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. And while you do that, as I always say, right, Copper? Be nice. You almost kissed me.